Slap, hello. Okay, everybody, where are you watching from? What are you drinking? Where are you watching from? What are you drinking? Hey, Megan, and hello, other Megan. 13 so far, wait to get to the magic 30 and then we will go. Molly's on our sofa and you've got Pims. Nice. Mint tea. Nice. How are you, man? Is anybody else's hay fever playing up? Alison or crap anyway. Sofa and Plymouth. Coffee for Monica. Also, what's your favourite burner, lads? I'm on the water as well, Christine. Pure vodka. Right. Front right, good choice, Kit. I'm a back right kind of guy, which is strange for a right-hander. Right, still wait till we get to the magic 30, then we can get going. Yeah, really annoying, isn't it? Eyes have been really itchy tonight. I'm glad Simpling Jewellery. Hey, Bonnie the Magpie. Right, front left, Christina. Solid choices, solid choices. All good choices. 26. 4 more people. Oh, and somebody left. Thanks. Thanks for that. Somebody else left. Thanks for that. Maybe if we're going to hover at this number, just to see. I think we're going to hover around this number for a while, so we might as well get going. Oh, we're creeping up. Right, so we are tonight live 10 miles south of Glasgow from my downstairs toilet. So welcome to my echoey little bathroom, which is doubling as an office throughout this pandemic. So tonight you are here to discuss bezel setting with us. So I've got some questions that have come in already. If you want to ask me a question about tonight's subject, which is bezel set, forgot it for a minute, I don't know. Use the wee question mark box. Hello Sophie, that should be down there at the bottom. It is in mine, it's right there on mine, okay? So use that to ask me a question, and once I've stopped gibbering about my pre-ones here, we'll get into your questions that you've asked. If you've got anything to add to what I'm talking about with the question I'm directing, then this is what the wee comments is for, and to say hello and things like that as well. Now, if you have to go before the end of this, I might as well tell you this, and I'll tell you a few times through tonight, and that is we have a very special guest joining us for next week's Q&A, because we can get 2 of us on the same one. It's a wee split screen. So what we're going to do is be talking to Samantha McLaughlin, who is a gemologist and knows all things stones. So it'll be a joint Q&A. Mainly I'll just be hosting it. But what I want you to do is start thinking about the questions that you would like to ask a gemologist, which is getting something. And we should have some other partnerships coming up for the next wee while. So let's get going. So tonight, I'm just going to run through my pictures here. We are talking about bezel setting. And here's a nice example of bezel setting. So this is what we're discussing tonight. Classic, beautiful, crisp form of setting, which when executed well, like that one I made there, can be a real thing of beauty indeed. But what I wanted to talk to you first about was what we like to refer to as basic technique. Okay, so when we talk about basic technique, we are talking about how you actually push the bezels over. So, to interject already and get sidetracked, which is, you know, what usually happens here, we all know this by now. I'm first going to tell you that we call it bezel setting, right? But some people call it rub over setting. And some people will call it collet setting. And then people think because it's in a tube, it's tube setting. Because they'd say to me, oh, I can bezel set, but I don't know how to tube set. And I'm like, it's the same thing. So here's the thing, right? As we know, jewellery has complex language. And for some bonkers and bizarre reason, we like to give things 17 different names, right? So, bezel's kind of the same as a collet. It's the metal around the stone. Now what you'll get is purists out there or old guys going like, oh, you can't call that, son. No, it's not the same. It is the bloody same. Let's just simplify things. And the same with rub over setting. You're rubbing over the edge. It's a bezel. So you're rubbing over the bezel, which is also a collet, which can be a piece of tube. So tube setting isn't a standalone thing. A piece of tube is a bezel, which is a collet, which you rub over. Alright? Tired after that. Tired myself out already. We're only 7 minutes in. So, basic technique. And I think a lot of people, when they teach basic bezel setting and how to push it over the wall of the metal over, because essentially that's what bezel setting is. It's you have the stone, you have a wall, and you push it over. Okay. So, and I think this is what the downfall is. A lot of people's first experience of stone setting is bezel setting, maybe. Bezel or claw setting. And if it is bezel, they often feel that they don't have the strength to push the wall over, despite it being quite thin gauge metal. We might come back to that after somebody wants to answer the question. So, it's not about strength. And people always say, oh, you're stronger than me. It's nothing to do with that. It's all about technique. Now, you've been to my classes, you've heard me bang on about this before, right? But I'll keep banging on about this till I'm blue in the face rather than the big red tomato face like I usually get every Tuesday night, right? It's not about strength, it's about technique. Yes, if you get a set of shoulders like mine, it can help when you're setting, but particularly bigger things. But the analogy I use is that myself and Rory McIlroy can stand on the golf tee and use the same golf ball and the same club. Now I can piddle it 150 yards down the fairway and he can smack it 400 yards down the fairway. And the reason is that he's finally honed his technique, so all the levers and everything work at once and generate the most amount of drive and power. Okay? And that's what we need to use using the body. So for those of you just turning up, we're talking about bezel setting. If you're just turning up, you've missed us already talking that bezel's the same as rub over, which is the same as collet, which is the same as tube. Okay? But what we're talking about now is how to actually push it over. Now, if we look at this graphic, which I think I showed when we were discussing in the first night. So this is a beautiful illustration from my stone set book, which is eventually coming out at some point. I'll tell you all about it. And this is by Jenny Cahoon. If you want to follow her, she's at Illustrated Lab. Just a reminder, guys, if you want to ask me a question, to type it into the wee box with the question mark in it, and I'll get to it after I run through the pre-questions. So if you want to ask me something, don't put it in the comments, because it's go rolling by and I can't see it. I can struggle to do one thing at once at the best of times. So if we see this nice image, and we can see that where my shoulder is in the image in comparison to then the nice straight forearm that I've got, and the elbows up. And that means, so if we can see that there, what we're creating is levers. So we've got one here, and one here. Now the main problem is people get really put off because the way they hold the pusher, now everyone's hand is different. Everyone has a different way. Everyone's got different lengths of fingers and proportions, right? But this is the image, again, that's going in the Stone Setting book. And we wanted to focus this quite a lot on basic technique because we believe that not too many people go into it. Now you can see at the top image, that's where we're showing the bezel setting, the push tool nestling nicely in that part of your hand. And then it shows, so I can do the opposite here, the way that we hold it. Now everybody is kind of tempted to put their forefinger forward, but that's not the way to do it. What you want is your thumb forward. And the reason that is it perform, if you imagine like that and you slip your thumbs in a way, if your forefinger is forward, if you slip, you're going to do a lot more damage. So we put our thumb forward, and we imagine it's kind of, you're closing your fist around your push tool and your thumb is forward. And that's me holding the job there, and you're creating that barrier. Now, focus on that top image again. See the way that the end of the push tool is nestling nicely in the palm of the hand, okay? Now imagine that is creating a piston all the way up to your elbow and not just wristing it. If you're just pushing from the wrist, you're generating power from there to there. That's not a lot of power. However, if you nestle it in the palm of your hand, and then it comes from here, which then comes up to a lever here, so everything comes from the shoulder, but it also mainly comes here. And I don't mean from the heart, man. I don't mean it comes from the heart and the soul. I mean it comes from the core. So you imagine that you're setting, right? We've got our shape. Your wrist is locked. You're creating a piston from the bezel, the push tool, all the way up to the elbow, which is locked nicely, then to the shoulder, and then we're pushing like that. So nothing's moving, nothing's buckling. See if your wrist is buckling, then the power's just coming from there. But if everything's nicely moving, see where that power's coming from. Imagine you're a boxer and you're right hooking, okay? The boxer's taught to come from here. I do not do yoga, no. So it comes from here, right? Nothing's bending, buckling or moving. And that generates the power. All the levers in the right place, like Rory McIlroy smacking the ball 400 yards down the fairway, okay? So don't be disheartened the first few times that you try bezel setting, because you just might not be getting the technique right. And it's important that we hold the push tool in the correct way and we sit with our body in the right way. And we've got some examples here of people sitting. So this is a good shot of somebody from above, and what we can see there is the elbows up. Now it's just slightly out of shot, but obviously you can see it there, right? So the elbows up, with their left hand they're holding the dop stick with the bezel on top of it. Notice their thumb is forward, and actually this person's great because they've got their pinky balanced on the bench peg for extra protection. So that's quite a good one to show. But you can see the left thumb pointing straight up there towards the bezel, and then that right thumb, which you can see is actually white because of the pressure that she's about to put on, and that protects you from slipping. This image as well, you can see Diane elbow up, leaning in, straight back, and she'd be ready to push like that. So if you want to practice, so if you've bezel set before and you can't do it, it'll be your wrist that's buckling. Practice doing it. Now there's a way to make sure you see what you're doing, right? Get your push tool, and we'll probably talk about push tools later now. Your push tool, and then try and push from the wrist and make a dent in the wood, right? Then try and push from here, from the shoulder, and make a dent in the wood, and you see it, you'll be much more powerful and you make a much bigger dent. Hello to everyone who's just joined in. We are talking about bezel setting tonight. If you want to put a question to me, put it in that nice wee box with the question mark, and I'll be able to run through them once I've finished gibbering here. So, don't wrist it, elbow, shoulder, core. Boom. Alright? And if you really want to learn, what you want to do is come to one of my classes, if that ever happens ever again. Okie dokie. So some questions that have come in, a few people have asked. Megan Falconer, a very talented silversmith and jeweller in her own right, and a lovely person to boot. Probably one of my favourite 2 employees in the whole world as well. Would I use a hammer to bezel set? I wouldn't. No. I know some people would. I know some people teach that. That is you, Megan. That's you. I just mentioned you. I personally would not want to use a hammer. That's not to say it's wrong. As I keep saying, I don't know everything. I'm not the be all and end all. I'm no kind of guru. I'm just a guy with a lot of experience. And in my experience, I don't want to hammer near that. I have enough problems not chipping stones by just pushing. So no, I wouldn't use a hammer to set it. But that's not to say that it wouldn't work for you. So if that works for you, good, well done, good on you. You have a deft touch with a hammer. That's a fair bit of skill, but it's not for me, and I don't want to do that. Megan also asked about multiple bezels, and I couldn't find a great image, but this is one that I did towards the tail end of last year with lots of bezels together. Now these were stacking rings, but they're all kind of set. So I think Megan's question was to do with them all together. So if we imagine that was one ring altogether. So if we've got lots of different bits of tube all tight up together, how do you then push the rubber over? How do you then get in there? And there's a few ways of doing it. If it's on a ring, obviously rings are round, so at the top of it, maybe the settings won't be together like that, they'll be together like that, which means there'll be a natural gap. Or if they are tight together, what you can do then is get a very, 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 very thin saw blade, get an 8-0 and drift it down the middle. Or when you're soldering it together, you just leave that slight gap as well. Now the other way of doing it is, say it's a centre stone and then you've got 2 either side, so you get the 3 stone. Similar to this, okay? Now, these were kind of probably flush set. They look like heavy bezels, but they were flush set. But what I wanted to show you was the centre stone and the 2 stones either side. What you can do is the height of the first one can be like that, and then the height of the second one is like that, which means that when you solder them together, this one can sit and tuck under a little bit like that, which means when you go to set the 2 outside ones, if you get a bearing cutter, the one that looks like a flying saucer, you can burr into the centre piece of tube, bezel, and tuck it under there, and then set it around there as well. Now, I understand that this is difficult by me just waving my hands about on the internet, but this is free content, lads, and that's how you get it, right? Using a bearing cutter is quite a good idea. You just tuck it under and then it's set around the other side, and it can be quite a neat and tidy look to it as well. Right, millions of people were asking about this. Hello to new people who have joined. We're talking about bezel setting tonight. If you want to ask me a question, use the wee box with a question mark, or else I'll send Kate round to get you once we're not social distancing, and believe me, you don't want nippy Kate coming round to see you. Right, what stuff is worth gold, Kate? See, this is a problem with comments coming in like 30 seconds later. I don't know what I've said. You watch back, which you can watch back on our YouTube channel. Right, what was I talking about? Yeah, thicker bezels. Right. Where is my thicker bezel? Bezels like this, lads. Do you all know how to do that? It's a completely different way of doing it. So when we do our basic stone setting class, we have a weekend where we do bezel setting and then cloth setting. Now it's anything but basic, bitches. It's not basic. It is quite difficult, so don't let the name fool you. If you're wondering where to find our YouTube channels, things like that, I'll tell you at the end. But if you're going before the end, look up Scott McIntyre Vanilla Ink and you'll find it, and you'll find all of our daily updates there. You'll find Tips Tuesdays there. You'll find Project Connect. You will find, what's the other thing we do? Incapacitated. Alright, so there's loads of things on our YouTube channel. It's all there. Find videos of me from a few years ago at various sizes, like massively fat and then a wee bit more, then a massive beard and then not so big. So yeah, the ever-changing sizes and beards of Scott. Different classes as well. What am I talking about? I don't know. Thicker bezels, excellent stuff. Right, so the one that's on the screen, Scott. So at our bezel setting class, so we do 3 ways, all right? So the first way, what we do is we just get a bit of tube, simple bit of tube, and we set it in. And that's our introduction to basic technique and the way we teach it. The second thing we do is we build a bezel, a bit like that we did there. So the bigger one, the onyx that's there, we build our own bezel and they set the cabochon. And then the third thing we do, now when you see them side by side, so that's thicker bezel that's in the dop stick, which for years I thought was a daub stick. I mean, I don't mind admitting I'm wrong. I mean, I'm wrong all the time. And the first one that we do is the one in front there. So we start with 6mm tube. So they're both from a bit of 6mm tube. Now the difference is, the first one, the first stone we use is a 5mm CZ. So the first one there, down the front, over the writing, which says front, is a 5mm CZ. The one that's in the dop stick, the one we're looking at here, is a 4.5mm CZ. So the first one we do, with the 5mm CZ, we burr down in to the wall of the tube. This leaves a little bit thinner wall and then push over. This one is a 4.5mm CZ, which is the inside diameter. So that means that we don't burr into the wall, which means we leave the thicker wall. And that's where that look comes from. Now it's a completely different way of doing it though. You don't just push over the wall. What you have to do with that is you have to file the wall into about a 45-degree angle like that. So imagine you're setting my head. See that? Look, my head is the stone, okay? So we want to get my head in the stone. There we go. Who knew a baldy head could do this? There we go, okay? And then we want to file to 45-degree angle. And then we push on top. And what we do is, so we've created the 45-degree angle. And then we set. But then what we want to do is file this back side away again, so it looks like that. And then we push over and set again, okay? Again, it's difficult for me to describe using hands and a baldy head as a cabochon stone. It's a nice cabochon stone, just don't look underneath it. I was always told to use my head. mean, if you want to properly learn, come and see me. Let's have a look through you reprobates questions. Right. Guidelines for acceptable depths would be great. I just stopped using fine bezel, silver bezel strip, too flimsy. Louise is saying there, yeah, bezel strip is shite. Okay, it's about 0.3 millimeters, which, although it's easy for you to push over, it's not going to last. It's crap. Only use it, I would say, maybe if you're using to learn with. I wouldn't be using bezel strip for a commercial job. I just don't think it's sturdy and durable enough. So yeah, it's good to maybe start learning on, but don't be using it commercially because it's too thin, man. I would always minimum half mil, try and set about 0.6, 0.7 mil. Seriously. Questions. So just following on from what I've said there, cabochon stones, big boys. Do you like big boys, Megan? What thickness of sheet would you recommend? That's all in proportion to the stone as well. But obviously it depends if you want the look of the one that's on screen at the moment. So do you want that look? Or do you want to have it a wee bit thinner? So it's all kind of relative to the look that you're wanting. But obviously if you've got a nice big cabochon, then a lovely thick bezel around that will look fantastic. So by all means, go for it. Questions. Does the length of the pusher make a difference in the shape of the handle? Right. I've settled on a push tool. It's a homemade push tool, so it's basically just one of those cheap mushroom handles with the adjustable chuck on it. And what I did was I got an old beater and I ground it down so it had a nice flat nose on it, and then I put it in the chuck and adjusted it. Now it sticks out about 7 or 8 mil, and that is perfect for the length of my hand. It pokes out perfectly. Everyone's hand's a different length, so please experiment and practice with different lengths. A homemade push tool can often be the best. I know you can buy them, and that's fine, that's not a problem, but they're at a set length. I would recommend that you adjust and play about with the shapes and the lengths and the thicknesses. And people say that it should be a square one, but I've been using a round one, and I've used a round pusher for the majority of my career. Now, first time I ever taught for Kate at Vanilla Ink 2.0 Ground Zero, those were the days, man. Somebody asked me, I think it was Sarah Spalding, said about polishing the end of your push tool. What's the best way to do that? And that is a huge no-no, because you're making it slippy, and you really don't want to be slipping with a push tool, especially when you're putting a great deal of force on there. So please don't, whatever you do, polish the end of your pusher. What I do is I get a file and you just pat the end of it. Now what that does, hi to everyone who's just joined at that moment, what that does is it creates a little bit of texture in the end, but not too much, so that it then transfers file marks onto the edge of your bezel. Now, to finish your bezel, you're going to have to file and polish it anyway, so don't worry too much about that. I understand the theory of polishing into your push tool, because then it doesn't transfer any marks, but just please don't, because you're going to slip and hurt yourself or smash a stone. So please don't do that. What else is going on in here? What is going on? How small can you go? That small. I have bezel set 1mm before. Which type of gravers do you tend to use the most? Good question. So, if we're talking about finishing, then a nice, crisp, flat scorper, highly polished at the end and as sharp can be, just gliding round the inside of the bezel is absolutely beautiful if you take the time to get it nice and shallow. Don't do that because then it won't cut. Nice and shallow. And then just hold it the same way as you hold your push tool and just scoot around the inside. Now what you're trying to do, and we're talking about the most minimal, and I mean minimal of margins, you just want to create the tiniest little gap between the inside edge of the bezel and the stone, because you don't want to be dragging that graver scorper along the stone, because it will just cause damage. So it's a learned technique to be able to run it along but hover it like fractions of millimeters just above the stone. So it's very much a learned thing. Or just stick to set diamonds, which will be fine. Let's get rid of that. Right. Hello, Jules Studio Andrews. I miss Mankers. Right, I'd love to know how to square bezel set. So with that, next. Anyway, right. So, what have we got? I'm sure I got a picture here somewhere. Right, this, what I'm about to show, is not mine. I did not set this, right? This is by Lado's jewellery studio. And this guy's a freak of nature. Look at it. Look at it. It's pornography. So, setting shapestones is a whole different kettle of worms and a can of fish. And it's mainly because we don't have shaped burrs yet. Damn you, science and technology. So that means we have to cut them out by hand. Now, when I was a lad, I was taught to cut round stones with a bill sticker, which was a particular kind of graver scorper, and that was to cut the seat for a round. And I kept saying, but we've got electricity and burrs, please can I use that? No son, you don't know, you need to learn to cut by hand. I'm pretty glad I did, because then it made me better at cutting seats for shapestones. So there's two ways. So there's maybe two ways of doing that. Is you would build the outer bezel and then you could build an inner bezel which slots in the inside. Now that's quite difficult. But then again, so is cutting the seat by hand with either burrs or scorpers. And it's just a learned thing. It's time. It's experience. This is one of mine. So this is a palladium ring with a green sapphire pear shape set in rose gold. The reason I've got that is to show you the nose. So what I did with this one is I created the outer bezel and then I created an inner seat for it and then soldered that in. So instead of burring that seat away or cutting it away with a scorper, I used the method that we would use for, where has it gone? For that, where we use the outer tube and then a bezel seat which is the exact same dimensions as the inner tube, like a bike tire, and then it slots in the inside and we solder it. So that was the way we did this. As I said, the other way is just to cut it out, burrs and scorpers. Now the most important bit is the points, is the corner. So stones are delicate as it is, but points and corners of stones are incredibly delicate. So we have to create little caves for them. We don't want points of stones touching metal, because then if we push metal over that point, it's creating pressure. Pressure will make it burst and snap. So the corners of stones always have to go into a wee cave, so there's no pressure directly pushing on there. So underneath the point of that pear shape, there'll be a wee cave in there. Now it's minuscule, teeny tiny, it's minuscule, but it just means that the point of this pear shape is in fresh air. And that means when I go to push over the point in the stone, that there's no pressure on it, and therefore reducing the risk of chipping the stone. Alright, so do what you can to reduce the risk of chipping the stone. Questions? So Sophie asked, how do you sharpen, like really sharpen, sharp your graver? So, again, skill, learned. Have I got a picture of sharpening gravers in here? I don't think I do. No, I don't. I do, however, have a picture of my cat on my seat. There we go. Look, there's Rosie being a jeweler. I just thought you would like to see that. So, sharpening scorpers is a learned technique again, and it's something that is, I suppose like the way we push and the basic technique, it's kind of glossed over a wee bit. I think, you know, you could spend a whole hour showing someone how to sharpen a scorper. And if we think about, you know, if this was a flat scorper, right, and we have to get it as shallow as possible, because imagine that's going to cut through metal, okay? So the point of it has to be incredibly sharp. It has to be shallow. If it's like that, that's not going to cut through the metal. So it has to be shallow. It has to be flat on its face as well. So that part of it has to be really, really flat also. But what you have to remember about gravers and scorpers, whatever finish is on the cutting edge is going to be transferred to the metal. So when I teach it at the stone setting class, I just show them how to sharpen the scorper, because I'll admit there's too much information to go on to that. So I mention about what I've just said, but we don't go into town about it. But you need to then get a mirror finish on the front of your scorper, and you can do that by going down the grades of sharpening stones. Now you can get an India stone, which is the kind of orangey one, which you will find is pre-oiled, and then you also get Arkansas stone, or as Egypt would call it, Arkansas. It's Arkansas, you know, like the state. And you have to oil that. That's very fine. It's like a whittling stone. And that gets a very, very fine polished edge on it. But then also if you use silicons, that's how you get a mirrored finish on it. Now if you have, there's like a lapidary stone you can get, and it just whooshes round and round. If you see guys that are polishing stones, that's great for sharpening scorpers. I would really like one of those. It's like on a motor, and that's how you can get the nice angles on it. I've just seen that there. What oil can you use in Arkansas? I just use 3-in-1 oil. Does the job. As long as it's lubed up, it's absolutely fine. Okay, but remember that whatever finish is on the cutting edge of the scorper will be transferred to the metal. So if you want a super bright cut around the inside of your bezel, get a really high polish finish on your scorper, but don't expect to do it immediately, because you'll roll all over the place and you'll get it kind of rounded. So it takes a wee bit of time to get used to it, okay? If you just joined us, we're talking about bezel setting. If you've got a question to ask me, put it in the little box at the bottom with the question marks. Okie dokie, let's have a look at some of your questions. Hello, Scratch Landing. Bezel rockers, I don't seem to get on with them any tips. I crimp the wall and usually have to do so much tidying. It's about the angle you're pushing. You might be, use this, so there's the pushing, right? Scott's cheap props. So if you're pushing, you might be leaning one way or the other, which means what you're maybe doing is with that edge, the sharp edge of the pusher, if you're not coming directly flat onto it, i.e. perpendicular, if you're coming onto it leaning one way or the other, you're using the edge there, and that might be what's crimping it. Without actually seeing anything, I'm not entirely too sure, but that's a very, very common mistake, is you're not pushing flat on to the metal. What you're doing is leaning one way or the other, which encourages the leading edge, the leading sharp pointy edge of the bezel pusher to then dent the metal, and then that's where the crimping comes from. Also, when you are bezel setting as well, remember that as much as you would start at north, south, east, west, and then do the bits in between and do the bits in between, the best way to do it is to go over and over and over and overlap 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 and overlap. The more you overlap, the smoother it will be all the way around. All right. Questions. Any tips for setting a slightly cracked fire opal? Leave the room, leave the slightly cracked fire opal sitting there, open a beer, sit in a chair and watch your programme, and forget that the slightly cracked fire opal exists, and never ever ever go back to it. I love fire opals, but by God, they are a pain in the arse to set. You look at them the wrong way and they just fucking chip. They're beautiful, but run away, Christina. I would say that no. You're going to try and set that, it's going to smash unless you have the deftest of touches. So I don't know, honestly. It's sentimental, okay. Set it gently. Use some jeweler's adhesive. I don't know. Just blue tack it in. Has anyone ever asked you that? Has anyone been ever standing over your shoulder and just went, so do you just glue them in now? Fuck off. Fucking 25 years I've spent now training myself to do this. And you ask if I just glue them in. Anyway. Right. Come on, give me some more questions. Give me some more questions. Can't, Sophie, I don't do trade setting anymore. Too busy doing other things like, existing through a global pandemic. Kate was pointing out, Scratch London, that bezel rockers are different to bezel pushers, but the same kind of principle it applies. It still applies to what I was saying. I understand that the rocker is slightly different to the pusher, being the kind of long hammerhead kind of style, but the advice that I gave there would probably still apply to that. Sarah says, do you still put a hole in the base to try and get the stone back out? Well, that depends on the job, really. If there isn't a hole in the base and you have been great and you've got the stone nice and tight, but then it doesn't sit straight, then what do you do? I've had to smash stones out before, basically, because it's been that tight but it's not been sitting straight. Then you have the decision of, do you set the stone squint and be completely unscrupulous, which we in the jewellery trade are not, or do you have to smash it and start again? But if you can't afford to smash it, then what the hell do you do? And I don't want to think about it because I'll probably be lying awake till 3 o'clock thinking about all these situations that I've been in. So thanks for the PTSD, Sarah. More often than not, there is a hole at the back of where you're setting it. You just prod the stone out. Carefully though, because you don't want to chip it. Right, we are talking about bezel setting. Sorry, I was reading and talking at the same time, which, as we know, I can't do two things at once. So we're talking about bezel setting. We are... hold on. Remember, guys, if you've got any questions for me, don't put them in the comments. What to do is put them in the little question mark box here down the bottom. However, Kate has pointed out that Indra had asked a good question in the comments and now I can't find it. Is this the one about African opals? So Indra has asked, have you heard of African opals? Are they as fragile as Australian ones? Sometimes I don't know where the stone has been sourced from, Indra, so I'm not entirely too sure if I've set African opals before, but I fucking hate all opals. They just smash constantly. This is the thing about setting stones, you know, this is my lifeblood, being a setter and setting stones, right? But these things aren't meant to be in metal. They belong in the ground. So it's no wonder they smash. But on the subject of opals and stones, Indra, and all you lot out there asking these questions, it's probably a better question for Samantha McLaughlin next week. If you weren't here at the start and you've only come in halfway through or recently, where the hell were you? Why weren't you here from the start? And also, we have a special guest next week because I'm fed up talking to you. I don't like you. That's not true. I love you all. So we have a special guest next week, and she is a gemologist. So it's Samantha McLaughlin, who is a gemologist. And if you have any questions, stone-wise, like Indra's question there about African opals and are they any different to Australian opals, then maybe an actual person who is intelligent, clever, and can give you a sound answer will be able to give that sound answer rather than me, who doesn't know anything, really. God, there's a whole raft of questions here. I thought I could wrap up early. So Molly asks, what if you scratch a stone while setting? Good question. Now this is probably falls into the dubious grey area of unscrupulousness. Can you hide it? If you scratch the edge of it, will the wall go over it? Because if you can't see it, it's not there, technically, isn't it? Awkward. But if you scratch a stone while setting it, if it's a cheap stone, just bin it. If it is an expensive stone, then you'll need to get it repolished, and a talented lapidrist will be able to repolish it for you. There's lots of polishers around these shores who will be able to sort that out for you. And it usually doesn't take too much to repolish it either. But I'm not an expert on that. I just know that I'd stick it in the post and it magically comes back and it's all polished. It's the same with like heirloom jewellery. If you are redoing somebody's rings, etc., and you have to pop it out of the bezel, and by the time you pop it out you realise it's all crispy and crusty, you can get it repolished. However, we're going off topic. Let's have a look. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves. Quickie, no, I don't use agate burnishers, I just use steel ones. I can understand why, if you prefer to use an agate burnisher, I don't have a problem with it. I wouldn't say it's right or wrong. So I don't, but you can if you want, put it that way. What's the softest stone you would push over? I've set all sorts. I've set emeralds and aquas and opals and fire opals and amber. I've set amber. That's pretty much as soft as you get. The only thing softer than amber is chalk. So I'll do anything for money. Just not that. I would do anything for money, but I won't do that. Oh, no. So yeah, I've set some horrible stones, and it's terrifying. Terrifying. Questions. This is a very good question. Hello, Dunkeld, personal jeweler. Right. What's the best stone to practice with? This is all new to me. Cubic zirconia. All day long. Cheap as chips. Quite sturdy. Takes a fair bit of it to chip it. Cubic zirconia. All day long. All day long. That's what we teach with. That's what I would recommend. And that's me answered your question. So cheerio. Hi. Stop talking about opal fruits and starbursts in my watch. Oh, how did I get rid of this? There we go. Right. I am looking at the questions. Would you polish the inside of the setting if the back was open? Yes. Great question. Just remember, Scott's word of advice here, just because you can't see that particular bit of the jewellery, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's the same with back of pendants and cufflinks and things like that. Get in the habit of finishing everything. And that means the inside of the setting as well. Give that a bright cut, give it a bright polish, because if it's quite a translucent stone, then that is going to shine or not shine through. So make sure that the insides of bezel settings are always a nice high polish as you can, if not a bright cut. Even diamonds, it will help the kind of light and the refraction bounce about. Now, people talk about windows and sides of and settings and things like that to let more light in. The argument against that is it doesn't really matter, because as long as light is coming in from the top, then light will refract about and do its job. However, if the inside of the setting is bright cut, it will allow that light to bounce about and refract a little bit better within that stone. So please polish the inside of your settings, you daft twats. I've got a question from Candice here. If you want to set a bezel that is so wide that it's into the circumference of the band, what's... Oh no, where's the rest of your question gone? What's a good W band for how W? See, I can't... Stupid Instagram Live. So the the answer to this is keep your questions short, lads. It doesn't allow me to open it up. Well, that's really annoying. Candice, do you want to put the rest of your question in the comments? I can try and see it. If you want to set a bezel that is so wide, it's like a quiz show. It's like a quiz show. Everybody answer the rest of that question. It's like blankety blank. If you want to set a bezel that is so wide into the what's the circumference of the band, what's blank? That was me being Les Dawson, by the way. Hi kids. Hi everyone under 42. I'm not actually sure if you want to set a bezel that is so wide that it's in the circumference of the band. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Candice. And so unless you put it in the comments, I can't see. Okay, what do you mean by bright cut? So a bright cut is if you were to cut... Oh, there's right, Candice. If the bezel is so wide that it cuts into circumference and makes the band smaller, how do you calculate to compensate for it? You just chop it out. Do it bit by bit. Set your ring on your ring stick and slot your bezel in. And if it goes above the size that you want, then take a wee bit more off, basically. Some things are dead easy. Some things are dead complicated. Right, we got 5 minutes to go. What do you mean by bright cut? A bright cut is what a scorper does to metal. So if you also what a bezel, Christ's sake, Scott, what a burnisher would do to the inside. So if we're talking about the inside of the bezel, so not the outer wall, but the inner wall next to the stone, if we were to take a flat scorper along there, it would create a lovely bright cut, a bright finish to the metal, simulating what a burnisher would do. So you can either cut it with a scorper or you can burnish around it with a nice pointy burnisher, and that would give a bright cut to it. So if we were talking about putting a bright cut on the inside of a bezel, rather than the inner edge, we are just making it bright, polishing it, making it lighter, basically. Okay. No bother, lads, no bother. Have we got anything? Right. There are no questions. So with 4 minutes to go. Oh, there's something just popped in. No. Great. Good. Oh yeah, Molly, what's this? What about using one of those metal grain tools? Are they good for detailing? A mill grain edge around the bezel setting is quite a complex thing indeed. It's quite kind of, there's a little bit of resurgence in kind of mill grain edge recently in the past maybe 3, 4, 5 years. They're quite difficult. I don't like you talking about the wee tool with the wheel. I don't think it gives a good enough mill grain edge. When I mill grain, I usually use a beater and meticulously go around it, which is an absolute ball ache. So I really, really wouldn't recommend it. I love a mill grained edge, but it's an absolute pain in the arse to do. But it looks lovely. It looks nice. Right. Okay. Right. So go away, question box. Right. We're coming up to the end of our show. Again, it's going to be like that, man. So thank you for turning up to Bezel Setting with me, Scott McIntyre of Vanilla Ink. A reminder that hi Jen, turning up for the last 2 minutes. So a reminder that Incapacitated this week, I've got my 2 minute warning. Incapacitated tomorrow, 2 PM, Facebook Live, we are carving a signet ring. Now I know that you want to come along, hang about with me and make a signet ring with me. I know you all do. It's going to be awesome. It's beautiful. Why are we saying what about a beader? Did I not mention a beader? Right. Project Connect this week, sponsored by Harbour Lane. The brief for Miss Kezia Cortez is live. You should be able to see it on our social medias. Some people are already submitted and they are beautiful. I'm really, 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 really excited about this week's Project Connect, sponsored by Harbour Lane. It's not really a sponsor, we're just pretending. Sponsored. It's not really sponsored. And again, so Tori Gray from Harbour Lane will be choosing the design of the week. And remember, you don't get any prizes, it's just the accolade of doing it, right? And then next week we have a gemologist. Gemologist Samantha McLaughlin will be here with me, not with me, but virtually with me, and we'll be talking all things gemstones and things like that. So we'll be talking about Mohs scale of hardness and this, that, and the next thing. Thank you very much to each and every one of you who listened to me rambling away for an hour every Tuesday, gibbering away. But I'm quite excited about next week. So stay safe, be kind. Love you all. Mwah.